that ending kind of sideswept me, I'm not gonna lie. In hindsight, it makes a lot of sense because they do talk about in the episode, like, hey, our boss who hired us, super nice, never went home when this big fog came in, and I mean, literally when the fog came in, a cyclops, a centaur-looking creature, big bird, literally were just getting sucked away, and ultimately, that in that moment, I could see a lot of people cluing in, but for me, like, I really wasn't sure what they're building up to. Like, I thought it was going to be some sort of, like, kraken-like beast or something, maybe some sky monster. But to just see this episode, and to see, once again, just, like, so much great character moments, whether it's Lucifer, I mean, he had a couple of moments in one episode of helping out. This man's about to go on a year-long vacation for all the work he's had to do recently. But just to see all these moments, to see Mama Emmy and just how ferocious she can be, not only just, you know, in her general day-to-day kind of spiciness, stabbing fools left and right. I mean, this poor bird, he almost got the shakedown just because the kid bumped her head because of her own cluelessness, all things considered. And then to just see your boss come in, say, hey, you know what, hey, we gotta go clean up, nothing too big, don't worry about it, they hid the bird, she's not gonna question. And the bird comes in saying, yeah, that person right there might be human, but scares the shit out of me. That is the most powerful thing that I do not want to touch. And I'm like, oh, okay. Because I have to imagine if she's doing things like sending demons home or potentially killing them or doing this or that, I have to imagine she has the ability to sense, like, hey, Mao isn't human necessarily, or Emmy has a lot of power herself. I imagine it's not a one-way street there, but then again, I mean, they didn't clue into the fact that she was super powerful, so maybe it is a different thing for different characters. I'm interested to see, though, because it doesn't come across like she's going to be an enemy in the way of, like, you know, the same way of, oh, you gotta give us this baby back because it needs to go to heaven. We're not going to have a situation like that, it feels like, or at least that's kind of how the directing's going right now. I kind of feel like it's some sort of guardianship or in that area, because there's no reason for her to have a shack open, work her ass off, try to have a nice business, but then seemingly when demonic-looking creatures come, you know, something seemingly protects the beach, right? To me, it kind of feels like she's pushing away the enemies from her point of view so that the humans day in and day out don't have to be worried about being lost at sea or anything. At least that's kind of my interpretation. But then again, they could blindside us with something a little more dark. But all things considered, it's a very solid plot twist at, I think, the appropriate moment. Because I think the last couple of episodes with this kind of vacation, new spot, hell, the apartment that he's kind of crashing at right now is better than his old apartment, it seems. I mean, you don't have Lucifer of all characters say he wants to be a shut-in and lock himself away the same way he did at his old place. So it's just been fun, and to see how the gang kind of all comes together to make sure that they do their best. I mean, they were getting swamped, people were getting fed up. You could already see the Karens starting to rise up in the background, and then in comes the girls and just absolutely saves the day, from cutting lettuce in the best way you could to just naturally using the physique to calm the crowd down a little bit as they get their orders a little slower than they were expecting. But it was great because it just felt like a good character building moment. You had to see some names drop that we don't see too often, especially between Emmy and Lucifer, so you kind of get these sweeter moments, and then of course you have to end it with his whole reason for inquiring and trying to make sure things work out is because he wants a new game console or potentially a new game, but leave it to him to say that. So it just was, to me, like more of a slice of life episode. I wasn't really expecting anything too explosive after the initial intro, because the initial intro, it was cool, right? Because you have these creatures that we really just don't see because they're in the human world now, and then almost immediately a tornado sucks them away, it feels like. And it's like, okay, and we also get, seemingly, like the best strategist that Mao could have, and even though he kind of got a downgrade to Little Peep, and I mean, I love just seeing Alice and just them just kind of chase each other and be like little peeps and just... It was so cute, man. They're just having fun with the charm of this season. But it was cool because, like, you know, it's a character that very much isn't going to push back the same way I think a lot of the characters that Mao used to know as Demon Lord Satan, right? Because, as he says, like, Alcio was someone who used to be our enemy. It's not really supposed to be a surprise to you if I'm kind of working with the hero here. Like, I like to switch people over to my side that I think could be a benefit. He's like, that makes sense. Yes, absolutely. So it's kind of cool to see the way that they're going about kind of connecting the dots from his original world to where he is now and how characters adjust to that newfound lifestyle. It was just really sweet to see all the numerous moments, like even Alcio of all characters kind of like stand up but also insult Emmy all at the same time about how like he should be like thankful and apologetic when it counts, even if, you know, it doesn't really mean much to her. And then of course we see the kind of brutality that can happen afterwards. But that's what I like about this season of Devil is a Part-Timer, and I actually thought this episode was a lot better produced than the past few episodes, honestly. I thought it was a lot more consistent, it didn't feel outsourced, it just felt like the character models remained in line with what the previous scene used them as, rather than like in, say, last week's episode where you can look at a character's face that looks like X thing, and then the next scene it looks like Y thing, instead of, you know, having a consistent, just overall quality to it. But this episode, even though it wasn't really action-packed, I thought there was some more intense moments, like from the tornado kind of like spinning them around to some of the more like careful animation techniques that they used in the rushing scene. Like, yeah, you have your typical still shots and your general animation, but there was some good moments in this episode. I honestly thought it was a much better produced, higher quality episode, and honestly, I'm excited to see if this manager, this boss, is just human, all things considered, like fully is that. She's not going to transform or anything, but maybe just packs one hell of a punch, which might be able to give Emmy and her mama ferocity a run for her money, which, honestly, if you really look at Emmy this season, comparing her previous actions in the prior season, is like literally night and day for how bold she is and how quickly she'll lose her temper. Not even just surrounding her kid, but just the general people in general, with stuff that usually she would just get annoyed with, now feels like they're about to get an ice pick to the eye, and I'm like, hot damn. Though it's not to say she's not being useful and careful around other people, because, like, I mean, she did help save the day, otherwise that business would have been swamped and probably had no customers by the end of the day, probably meaning there'd be no money to actually pay these fools. I'm just happy that this show is back, and I'm excited to see where the next half of the season's gonna go, because it's interesting, right? Because what should be a pretty typical summer vacation job has turned into something that they seemingly enjoy doing, like the person involved, but apparently that person may not like Mao's kind all too much, and if that's the case, I wonder how far he'll have to take it in order to convince. Will it be a battle? Will there be something that she wants to throw away and then, you know, he decides to protect? There's a lot of potential for drama, but it almost feels to me like with this plot twist, it's not meant to be like the same level as our baby's about to be taken away to heaven, but more so maybe there'll be a team up that will change your mind sort of thing. I'm not sure. Either way, it was a fun plot twist with a lot of great comedy, a lot of great slice of life moments, and truthfully, I think this is a very refreshing setting for The Devil is a Part-Timer. I think beach settings are just fun in general. Look at, once again, the best damn sandcastle you'll see all day. There's just a lot of potential for simple, but I think more visually pleasing moments than a rundown apartment and a McDonald's job, because once you see it a couple of times, there's not too much you can do with it. So it's the right time for a scenery change, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how long this character will actually stick around once the cat's fully out of the bag for all of them, and what it can mean for the future for these characters. But great episode, definitely one of my favorites, if not maybe even my favorite episode of the season, if I'm being honest. But thoughts down below, theories if you got any, leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new around here. Till next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.